Hi, today we're talking about millennial leaders and difficult conversations. Are you ready? Here we go. Yes, and we are live. All right, so today's discussion is all about millennial leaders and how they handle difficult conversations. And this is what I wanted to share with you today. So I'm not going to take too long. I want to take you through some reasons of why millennial leaders sometimes struggle with having difficult conversations, especially in the workplace, and especially as they manage small teams. So, first of all, I wanted to remind you of what we talked about last time in our last live discussion about generations at work. And if you look at this table right here, it kind of explains why millennials are the ones who feel the least confident in their ability to handle a difficult conversation. So if you look at generations and how they perceive feedback and then how they perceive the leader, you will see that baby boomers perceived feedback. For them, feedback was the exam and the leader was the authority. For Generation X, it was a lot of criticism. When we talk about feedback, we talk about criticism. And the leader was the competence in whatever they were. So if you were managing a team, yes, you needed the technical skills. We didn't care too much about people skills, leadership skills, and all of that. That came later. So to be an initial leader, you needed to be competent. And then with millennials, what happened was that for them, feedback was more of a positive reinforcement. And also, the leader is perceived as a coach. So that's how they learn. And that's how they also like to pass on the information to the team members, to the teams that they are managing and leading. With Generation Z that's coming and entering the workplace, feedback for them is a dialogue. So they do have the skill to address conflict or criticism, but they also thrive on positive reinforcement. So they took a combination of Generation X and millennials, and now for them it's a dialogue. And the leader has to be one of us. So what that means for the millennial leaders is, of course, you had the model of Generation X growing up and getting into the workforce and having that role model of what it means to be a leader in the workplace. Criticism as feedback and competence, right? You had to be good at what you do to be able to be a leader. But what you also thrive on is the positive reinforcement. And this is what you as millennials brought into the workplace. Now, that kind of also explains why it is a little bit difficult to address a tough conversation or to address conflict and to manage conflict. Because if I'm somebody who thrives on positive reinforcement, it's going to be more difficult for me to be critical. And that's why I always say, whenever I talk about feedback is not criticism for the sake of criticism. We help somebody grow, we help somebody improve. So that is one of the skills that you might want to have a look and really start mastering so that you can also grow as a leader. Because the reality is, addressing and managing difficult conversations and difficult situations in the workplace, with the team, with clients, that is a crucial leadership skill to have. Now, I wanted to ask you before we move on, what what does it mean for you? What does a difficult conversation mean to you? And I think this photo right here is quite a good example of how we feel in a difficult conversation. Um, Regardless of what we say about it. I might say that I'm glad we've had the chat, but really, do I feel like that? So, difficult conversations. What I've seen with some of the millennial leaders that I'm working with is that difficult conversations for them are around telling someone bad news or addressing poor performance. How do I let a specific team member know that they are sorry. See, another that's another one. It's tough. I'm just thinking about having that difficult conversation and I'm losing my voice. So addressing poor performance, how do I let them know, hey, you're not performing to the levels that we thought you would be? um, how am I giving people feedback about their behavior? Feedback that is negative, something that I don't like about their behavior, and something that I don't want to see repeated about their behavior, because basically this is what feedback is all about. And in working with millennial leaders around giving feedback to their teams, we always end up having this conversation around what feedback really means and how you can address both positive and negative feedback. Also, confronting someone about a problem, that is confrontational skills, and that is uncomfortable. And it's going to be, you have to think about it, it's uncomfortable for everybody in the conversation, it's uncomfortable for both parties. And when you think about giving negative feedback, that's uncomfortable. Receiving negative feedback, that's uncomfortable. Raising issues with somebody in a power position, that's also tough for millennial leaders, especially when people in a power position are their clients. Or raising and dealing with issues involving team members, that's another thing. Because if you're not raising the issue yourself, but a team member is, and this is what you will see more and more with the Gen Zs coming in and starting to really raise some issues because they need that dialogue. What do you do as a millennial leader when you thrive on positive reinforcement, but now you have to address an issue? So how do you go about that? Now, why I said that, yes, everybody feels uncomfortable having difficult conversations, and really everybody, even if you think about older generations, that doesn't mean that if they do it they like it necessarily. It's just became a habit. It's something that they grew up with. And if we look at the reasons behind difficult conversations, in other words, what makes difficult conversations difficult? Why are they difficult? It's first of all because we all feel strongly about that, right? So we have strong emotions about that particular conversation because it can impact our self-esteem, or we're not sure, or we're worried about what if it goes bad and what if it's going to hurt the relationship. The truth is, the more we care about the issue and the people involved, the more we tend to postpone addressing issues or addressing those difficult situations because we're not sure about the outcome. What's going to happen? How is that? What if that's going to hurt my relationship? And how am I still going to be able to work with you today or tomorrow after having had the difficult conversation? How do we go about that? And also the possibility that we've had very few experiences or models of these conversations going well. And if you go back to what we were saying at the beginning of our conversation today, that boomers and Gen Xers, they were very critical, and that's the model that the next generations grew up with. So when it comes to feedback, it was usually critical. So how am I gonna like the word feedback? That's why most of us cringe when we hear the word feedback, because we think about immediately, oh my God, what have I done wrong? That's what goes in our mind when we hear about feedback, because it used to be very critical. So what millennials brought into the workplace, and especially as leaders, and that's something that you can grow, is the positive reinforcement. So when we think about feedback, we also think about positive feedback and negative feedback, and a conversation around that, so that we can agree on the next steps that we need to take, so that the situation is a win-win. That's one way of looking at it. So some of the solutions around having difficult conversations are, I will give you 4 steps. First of all, learning to address and manage difficult conversations before they turn into a conflict. So, in other words, not postponing that conversation. Start where it's still a disagreement and it's not a conflict yet. Because the truth is, the more I postpone the conversation, the more I postpone having that issue addressed, or giving feedback to somebody, or letting them know what works or doesn't work for me in this particular situation, the higher the chances that it will turn into a conflict eventually, and that that person won't even understand what I'm talking about and why I'm even mentioning it, and why is it such a big deal, because it just piles up. Step number 2, feedback skills. Learn how to give negative feedback. That's an essential skill to have as a leader of your team. It doesn't matter how large or small your team is, but essentially, and especially if you've just started to manage and lead people in teams, that's a crucial skill to have, because that's how we all understand what our framework, what our performance framework is. So, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, what is a success and what is not a success, and we need to tweak it. That's how we understand how we can move and make things work individually in our work and as a team. Listening skills, that gives you a lot of background. So, effective listening skills means that you're also going to be able to influence others without having that need of saving them. It's not about saving somebody and helping them or forcing them sometimes to see the bright side of things. Because again, sometimes when I am I'm having a bad day, really, it's really hard to switch to immediately see the bright side of things. And millennials, with your positive reinforcement and thriving on that, that's sometimes what I find that leaders that I work with tend to do. They want to help their team see the bright side of life or of the situation. And the truth is, sometimes it's just being able to listen and ask the right kind of questions, so that you encourage some difficult conversations and you moderate them without necessarily focusing on the bright side, but letting people, creating that safe space and that environment where they can have an authentic, genuine, real conversation about how they feel about the situation, what they think about the solution that you're discussing. And weighing the pros and cons, that's going to be on the long run more beneficial for the team and for you as a leader as well. And that only helps you build on your leader as a coach and mentor skills even more. That's where you can really help your team and help yourselves become stronger leaders in the workplace or in your business, because that is where you are going to see your team progressing and growing and you growing as a leader. And that brings you that balance that you need between addressing the positive and the negative with a balanced outcome and with a clear outcome for everybody. So these would be some of the solutions that I strongly encourage you to look for, and you can start learning in bits and pieces. The main point here is for you to start applying, for you to start practicing. So the more I'm going to give feedback, both positive and negative, on a regular daily basis, the easier it will become. And the truth is, the easier it will become for everyone else around me, because if people are not used to me giving them feedback, of course that's going to seem awkward in the beginning. But the more I do it, the more comfortable everybody starts feeling around feedback. And then we really sit down and are able to listen to one another better and look for solutions that are win-wins, and that we really believe are win-wins for everybody. So, for more resources, you have the All Personal Learning platform. I will put the link in the comment below so you can click on it. You will find a lot of free resources for people who lead people and teams, and also some resources for you as millennial leaders. So check the link in the comments and you can start learning at your own pace. You can ask questions, you can make your comments in the courses on the platform. I will be there to answer, and let me know how it works. Let me know, because you will find some solutions that you can try on. Let me know how they work. Let me know what doesn't work and what else you would like to see on the platform. Also, on July 15th, we have the next All Personal live workshop, which talks about lead your team from languishing to flourishing. So we're going to run through a couple of ideas around what languishing means, where it comes from, how people react in distressful situations, and how you can help your team and also yourself as the leader of your small team flourish again. Because there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of unknown. Let us uncover some of that stuff and see how we can go back to flourishing again. All right. So, that being said, I'm looking forward to your questions on the topic of having difficult conversations. Let me know what solutions you've tried, what solutions you still want to try, and how they work for you. And see you on the workshop or on our next live stream, which is next week. Awesome. Take care. Have a great day, and bye for now.